Good morning. This is Hippie Hacker, and I am hosting the SIG Architecture Conformance office hours. John Bellemark is a representation from SIG Architecture, and we have a lot of the folks on the II team here as well. Just a reminder, this is public on YouTube, and we adhere to the Kubernetes and CNCF code of conduct, which is be kind, and I think that will be something we all need a little more of in our lives this week. I will go ahead and bring up the agenda and share my screen. Just one moment. I'll set that up. Share screen. So today is June 22nd. If anybody wants to assist me in taking notes, that would be great. Be sure and add your name here to the list. I will take an example by adding myself. And if anybody has any discussion items to add before the call, please put them there. The II team tends to fill out reviews of the work that we've been doing on writing tests, and we can jump into that, as well as some open discussions a little bit. It looks like we moved open discussion down. That's fine. We'll go through Jeff's list of behaviors PR. Some good news, service account is merged. And I know that does appear in the API Snoop graph. So we're up 7 points in this release from 1.18. And replication controller is well on its way as well. And there's some improvements to config lifecycle tests. But I don't know that they need to be gone through. Is that right, Rian and Caleb? Or do we want to talk about the, because I kind of move on to the polling in 9.0 and 9.44.
There's been a bunch of progress on the, or rather there's been a bunch of review. So unless there's more stuff to add into that, then probably not, but any more review would be welcome.
Okay. It looks like we need an LGTM on this one, so I'll bring that up, as well as the, where are these? I'm going to close this one. This is a promote that needs an LGTM here. It's been so. Go ahead.
On that one, there was a bit of discussion yesterday between Stephen and Aaron about what is the point of the polling and the delete. So Stephen can probably give us a little more on that.
Okay.
I think it was just a bit of confusion about where the check was to be made. So based on Aaron's comment, I have relocated the poll check to be doing on the list check afterwards. So that, I believe, addresses the issue around the polling. The problem I have is because I moved my test and Caleb's conformance test, there's an issue around the conformance YAML I need to look at after the meeting. And there was one minor Go format issue I ran into. But it's the next, the pod template one. All the tests have passed and I've addressed the polling bit. So it just needs to be given a final review and some LGTMs, hopefully.
Thanks, Stephen. If I look at the proper or it loads in my list here. We'll pass those errors, which we're going to be able to fix. We'll come back to that. We're going to leave replication controller and config map to Caleb to review. And with much which we just talked about. This is one where we had the move. Do we need to do anything on the move?
The move is done. I just had an open question. If you go down to the test grid or the checks down a little, there is a open point change request that I'm just not. The change was done by Stephen. I'm just not sure how to approve that or verify that it's. I looked at it this morning, see the changes in, but I just needed to verify how to move. How to verify the move.
I think that's something that Aaron will have to do when he gets to take this look at it. Is that sound accurate, John, Srini, Jeff? I'm not sure the exact action like that he needs to take on that, but when he requests the change, there'll be somewhere around him to say change accepted or
there's a way to resolve it usually, but
resolve.
the change when we're waiting for the update for this, right? I think the issue is
Why are we deleting in a loop? It would help not just to address it, but also respond to his comment, Stephen, and address, say, this is precisely where I addressed why we are deleting in a pull loop or what your resolution was, so that's really clear.
Yeah, unfortunately, the tests were running quite late yesterday, and I ran out of time to confirm the results before I was going to reply. So I'll make sure I add in a comment after the meeting once I've addressed the failure I'm getting on some of the tests there.
Excellent, thanks, Steve. And this is the watch tooling, which we probably want to spend some time on to make sure that we are all on the same page. It tends to be a larger topic of discussion because it is something that's depended on by a lot of other tests. So I will go to the bottom and scan back up to comments from right about here. We asked for Amici, looked at it, hadn't had a chance at, but we had Aaron take a look. Aaron is confused and is looking at the usage here. And I think Caleb just got in. He's here. He's not here the day before the meeting.
Yeah, I've started going through and addressing these comments. There's some which I've been able to answer right away, but some others which I'm actively working through. But yeah, feel free to continue down the line of all of them.
okay. I haven't had a chance to look at this at all.
This would be really useful to get feedback on, and so that we can, because Caleb's here for the next 48 hours or so. He volunteers at another organization, and so we have him for about 3 days a week. So I'll make sure that we can get that feedback to him as soon as we can. I'll also do the same with him today, Harrison. Yeah, topic update would be good. I'll agree on. I think is that the topic of the PR itself? It says add event watch tooling, or where is this text? That the description of the in the description area? Yeah, this PR adds the event watch tooling. So Caleb, if you can help Rian with that description, that would be great.
Yep.
Cool. I'm gonna leave that for asynchronous feedback, but high priority. Please put priority on it.
Okay.
So now
Aaron is not around today, but maybe
I saw that. Yeah. It's, all good. There's a lot of stuff going on. Everybody take what they need to be healthy and here and there, where all the places that we are. and have grace for everybody else as well. Kat, this is.
I just want to give a quick update of the progress for our conformance behavior mapping. So I've done about, I think, a bit over half of the mapping for, just for context, this cap changes the way that we represent behaviors in our, like moving from the conformance.yaml file to special behaviors files. So if you can just open up any one of the PRs. Yeah, basically just enumerating a list of behaviors based on what we have in our E3 tests.
Okay.
So if you have time, just please take a look.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to get a look at this one too.
Thanks heaps, Jeff. This is good stuff, and I'm more active. Everybody's looking forward to this. Great work.
But yeah, so far I've mapped over the behaviors that have clear owners. There are a couple behaviors I'm not sure like which SIG it belongs under, but I'm still working through those.
Great. Yeah, I saw you sent in a bunch of PR, so I have to check them out.
I'll definitely get to these this week. So we have a week after that before our next meeting. That's my promise.
Awesome.
Excellent work. Yep, thank you for capturing that, Brian. We lost an endpoint this week, and normally I'm like, oh, we lost an endpoint. That means our coverage went up. But I'm going to grieve this one here for a minute. This was a feature that came in when we first started using API students. We got no way to get information about the usage of the API easily without using, basically misusing something like what was it called, the admission controllers of various types, or the and so when I started saying I'm going to use an admission controller to get the data, there was a PR, an issue created pretty quickly around, well, let's just do dynamic auditing, and then the feature got enabled, and then we've been depending on it because it's part of our flow for bringing up Kind to enable feature dynamic auditing for our Kind clusters, and then using the definition for a dynamic audit to point to our service that runs in cluster to collect the data. So we need to follow up on this a bit, but I wanted to be really clear that we were one of the most heavy users of this feature.
Hey man, don't rely on alpha features.
I'm relying on it. It's the way around, but when something you use heavily goes away, it's okay to shed a tear.
I know, I'm kidding. Yeah, okay, so we'll need a different way to do that.
It's okay, there are ways, but and we have till 1.9, because right now most of the stuff we work on anyway is 1.18. We deploy Kind and we deploy 1.18.
Okay.
And then before 1.19 hits, we are going to need a workaround for our team to use the way we develop. But that's okay.
You can't use a statically configured audit.
We've done that in the past, and you have to know the IP address of the service because DNS resolution within the that's all. It's fascinating.
Right, it's not using in-cluster DNS, right?
This was a way around that because you can configure it on the fly and you know what it is at the time of it's all static. We'll still find a way. And our next part was we've been saying, how do we go through our stuff? And so Stephen took some time to set up the old triage party. And if you want to share your screen, Stephen, or I can be your remote hands and ears to talk about this.
I think it's just going to be easier for you just to share the screen.
Okay.
So the idea was the triage party is the fact that because the progress bar conformance project board is a little bit more on the progress as we're going through various stages. This just gave a quick way of looking at on the top of the page, Happy, where we've got the important, soon, urgent. We've got a way to quickly look at various items, and also the daily triage by default will end up not including anything based around stale or frozen issues or PRs. So it was just a way of just having a different way of looking at all the various parts of the workflow that we're working through.
I mean, this looks pretty good. This is a tool? I'm not familiar with this tool.
This is a Google developed tool that was, do you know the SIG that it's deployed in, Stephen?
It got used for Minikube, and if you go and look at, I'll just put a link in.
Got our notes somewhere. If I'm going to put a link there.
I'll just stick it in the chat. This is the documentation, sort of like reference that I ended up creating as part of this. It's got links back to the original triage party. So it's github.com/google/triage-party. So yeah, it got used for like Minikube and a few other projects.
Oh,
So I just thought it's just another way of looking at all the various information that we're trying to process in a slightly different format, so that things hopefully don't go stale too soon.
I think we have a configuration here as well, right? This is the
Yeah. So the configuration that it's using is, if you click on the YAML hubby.
wait, this one?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the default one.
Sorry, that's the default one. Sorry, if you scroll down a little bit further.
Configuration.
Yeah, sorry, my one's, yeah.
There's our configuration, which
Yeah, so the big difference is just adding in the labels for area conformance and removing the stale frozen options under daily. And if those options have been added back into a new section under quarterly scrub. So I've added another section. If you go to the quarterly scrub and then you go right to the bottom of the page,
got the little party.
on the triage party.
Quarterly
So if you go to
scrub.
quarterly scrub and then you go right to the bottom, it will pick up, there's a section there for backlog that's got all the life cycle frozen, life cycle rotten type issues and stuff
okay.
that I've just removed from the daily.
Interesting.
We'd mentioned taking a look at this in a past meeting, and I just wanted to.
Okay.
Oh,
No, it looks pretty good. It's a lot more functional than the project boards, right?
Yeah.
And more configurable and.
I
I
don't
stuck some
know
notes.
yet, but I figured now that we know where the knobs are, we can start thinking about it.
Yeah, I posted a message in Slack the other last week.
Any comments or feedback or thoughts on Triage Party?
I mean, it looks pretty cool to start out from first glance. What are these similar to? How does that, is that automatic?
Let me get back to that and help me find that. Tom, where do I find
Yeah,
something?
it looks like it's just, it's probably something it automatically does to try and identify duplicates. But for us, a lot of these look similar.
Yeah.
Just go in the daily triage, you'll see a bunch of things. But
Unprioritized, uncommented.
all those yellow boxes, but it's okay. I understand what it is now.
Okay, cool. Do take some time and think about application toward conformance. If you have some time, maybe we can follow up with an invitation to the mailing list. Just say this is maybe with a link to your org file there. Stephen, if you'll write up, would be good. There was a Google sheet created by Kailash, Rion, and Zach. I don't think Zach's on the call.
Hello.
Okay, good to see you. We've got so many, we have more people than participants that can be listed on my screen. That's a new one, please, to hear you, Zach. I'm going to drive through, pardon me, I think this is the sheet. And maybe I'll let Zach speak to it and I'll move the mouse around.
Yeah, so what we're seeing, we took an audit log from the most recent master and also a most recent conformance.yaml, and then swagger.json is going as far back as we could, so to 1.5. And with that, we're able to look at how many endpoints were released per release, and how many of those came with tests, with conformance tests already, and how many of those are still not conformance tested today. So the focus of this is on stable endpoints, and drawing from those 3 bits of data. So 1.5 is going to be the most, just because that's when the Swagger started. But we can see that, and yeah, there won't be any conformance tests until the conformance.yaml starts tracking them, which is at 1.9, 1.8 or 1.9. But with column B, you can see how many endpoints are in the Swagger JSON for that release, and how many of them are the first time that they appeared in a Swagger JSON is column C. So with that, we can see how many new endpoints came with that release. And then we looked at the conformance.yaml and compared that with the audit event to see conformance tests that hit the endpoints in that release and what the release date for the conformance test was. And so with that, you could see that if the endpoint was released, let's say in 1.10, and a conformance test that hit that endpoint was also released in 1.10, then you could say that that endpoint came with a conformance test. If not, then they did not. And as you can see, most of the time we're introducing new stable endpoints that don't have conformance tests. 1.16 is a impressive anomaly where there was a lot of new endpoints and the majority of them came with conformance tests.
So that's when we first implemented the policy. We got all the that's, I think that's when all the, is that the release, all the CRD stuff went to G stable. So I'm surprised in 117 and 118 people they're slipping stuff past us, I guess, without us seeing it.
They are not, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then on column E, what we're looking at are the endpoints in column C, the ones that were new at the time of the release. How many of them still don't have any conformance tests that hit? Or there's, as of today, there is no conformance test that hit them. So of the original 226, 150 of them are still untested, which helps us in column G. We can see the percentage of these endpoints that are now covered today. So of the 226, 32% of them are covered today. And again, 1.16 is the most impressive with 92%, 93% of them are covered today. But the rest of the numbers are not as great. And then in column F, what we're looking at is the total amount of endpoints at that time that are hit by tests, which helps us see is essentially what's happening is new tests are being added with each release, but often the conformance tests are targeting endpoints that were released in previous versions. So a lot of the stuff, the coverage in 1.5 came in 1.9, 1.10, 1.11, and so on.
So this says stable endpoints. So this doesn't distinguish between optional and non-optional.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's where we're trying to figure out the words for that. And in our graph, we had a meeting where we went through and decided we're not going to do stuff related to storage, for example. And there were a list of endpoints that are there, but we wanted the raw.
Right. Most of the a lot of the storage ones are going to be considered optional. RBAC is optional.
Yep. Can we put that into the Swagger JSON somehow in the next group? Like, because it's really critical for us to document that somewhere. And right now it's in a SQL query embedded in the org file, embedded in sometimes how we report the data.
Yeah.
Super.
We talked about possibly doing that, but it hasn't happened yet. The data, right? I mean, that has to be done through API machinery, and then somebody has to go and designate all of those things. What will happen now as we transition to the behaviors stuff, which Jeffrey made good progress on, is that those will become we have another cap out there. I think that you've reviewed it. I don't know if anybody else has seen it, but around the profiles piece. And the profiles piece, there we will sort of start designating behaviors as part of the base profile versus not. So then we should, once we have that designation in there, then when we start taking this measurement based upon at least this version, the version of this table that's based upon behaviors should be able to be fairly easy to produce and have it say, this is the percentage of coverage of the base profile we have. This is the percentage coverage we have of the cluster administrator profile. This is the, whatever it is. Will be the metadata for that at least.
In order to kind of close out, because this metric is still on the OKRs for.
Yeah, I think it should stay too, right? It's a separate way of measuring things.
I want to make sure that it's okay for us to say total, and then we use the word eligible for raw conformance and measurement this way. I don't know. I don't want to trigger anybody and say profile stuff yet, or say things that.
No, I think saying eligible endpoints, but like I said, like you said, it's embedded in a SQL statement.
So we'll add a new, instead of total stable endpoints, we'll add, in addition, add eligible stable endpoints. And that we will have new ineligible endpoints and then new eligible endpoints. Because what we want to make sure is that number of eligible endpoints that are still in, that are introduced in this PR are 0. Because past 116, the gate is up and it's this thing until the PR thing happens later in this release cycle.
So am I correct in reading this? It sounded like you said it wasn't, or if I understood you said I wasn't, that this is saying people are GAing things without us
No.
conformance.
The 8 endpoints in 14 and the 7 endpoints in 15 are ineligible.
Ah, okay.
And
Got
so I can't show that because we need to be really clear that new and eligible endpoints and know what they are, and then new
Yep.
eligible endpoints.
Yep.
And make sure that we do not allow new eligible endpoints into stable.
Without coverage.
It's going to be, but we need to, you know, do we need to get some approval from SIG API machinery to do that tagging based on the feedback from SIG architecture to inject it into the? I tried to add metadata to Swagger JSON before and got feedback that it was increasing the surface area of the API. Because that was for, can we, and I think it was for when we do audit logging, can we include, and it's slightly different use case, but could we include the operation ID inside of the audit logging, even though that was kind of a free form field?
I mean, there is a way to add metadata. Yeah, I mean, there's a feature request out there somewhere that's specifically about adding metadata, and we talked like a year ago about adding metadata around these things too. It's just, I think, not a particular priority for API machinery.
No.
With other things they have going on. So, you know, it's a matter of getting a commitment from somebody there to provide the reviews if you're up for doing the work. So we could try to talk to them about that.
What if we did something different as far as this table, the way that we have a release and there are endpoints there, having the in Kubernetes repo, in the conformance test data folder, having a YAML file that has the format of an endpoint and when it was released. And when it,
that's a great idea. That would be much simpler.
Yeah.
It's out of band.
Yeah. On the repo. So, Rian, you want to take an action item for taking Zach's work and creating a PR with the data. I know that as Zach, do you want to talk a bit to what you found prior to 1.5?
Oh yeah, well, so we're I was curious on if it would be possible to essentially construct Swagger with information previous to 1.5. And so I know that in the repo there was a Swagger spec that existed in 1.1 and up, but it's made up of like multiple files that you don't map, of course, because like Kubernetes wasn't made ready for it, I guess, until 1.4 to 1.5. But I wasn't sure if there was any known way to essentially construct the Swagger, because if we could do that, we could see the endpoints from the beginning till today. Right now, I'm locked at 1.5.
I don't know that that's necessary. I have no idea whether it's possible that predates me in Kubernetes at all, much less in the kind of role I am now. I think I got involved in 1.6 or 7 timeframe. Does that make sense? 4 years ago. Yeah, I mean, you could ask in the SIG API machinery. I'm not sure what you're trying to, glean from that. That's ancient history.
Yeah, it would be mostly the like historical record of it, and it might be more trivially interesting than usefully interesting.
Yeah, I think probably.
I think with regards. Go ahead, John.
I think most important is we want to make sure that we're making progress and that new things are not slipping through the cracks.
I feel pretty good from 160 and onward. We were just trying to get the data back from where the holes were to be really clear. in the past. So we'll leave it at 1.5. We'll try to put together a chart for this, like a one-time, that'll show our change from 1.5 on the amount of endpoints that are currently in existence today. So that we have this up and to the right graph of total coverage, and we'll incorporate those endpoints that are ineligible and make sure they're in that YAML file so they're part of the process and merged with Kubernetes. I think that is our sheet, unless you have anything further to add, Zach, or anyone has any questions or comments.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
Excellent work. Thank you, Zach. We've got our dashboard and prow. So behind me, Berno's working with me on the gate, and we have our plugins working, but we're still, it's a complicated piece of equipment. And so we're hoping to get that wrapped up in the next, before the next meeting in about 2 weeks. So we'll work on that. It's, the world's been a bit distracting, and we're doing the best we can as far as progressing these forward as quickly as we can.
Sure.
That's all I have on the agenda. And I think rather than going through the board, we have these open things that would require better async time rather than going through. So
Okay.
rather than hold everybody on the call synchronously, if you want to still spend this next bit of time asynchronously going through that, I'm welcome to leave the Zoom open and be quiet, or I don't have to stop recording, but so that everybody can have their time back and allocate it as needed. But do know we really could use some help on the particularly watch tooling.
Okay. Well, I'll try to get a look. I can do some of that now, I guess.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
and Brian, and to all the IIT. I think I'm going to stop the meeting recording.